If you want to understand the deep contradictions at the heart of modern South Korea, look no further than its sky-high real estate prices and stubborn inflation. These twin economic forces are pulling the nation in opposite directions, creating a dizzying landscape of soaring property values amid stagnant wages and rising costs of living. It is a portrait of a deeply unequal society teetering between aspiration and angst. On one side, you have the Uido Republic, the glitzy, affluent districts of South Korea's capital, where chic cafes line streets of glass and steel high-rises. Here, the ultra-wealthy sip flat whites while checking real estate listings on their phones, hoping to get in on the latest property craze before the next surge in prices. Apartments in the poshest neighborhoods of Seoul have seen nearly 2 straight years of weekly price appreciation, according to data from the Korea Real Estate Board. It's a frenzy fueled by cheap money, speculation, and the eternal Korean obsession with real estate as the paramount marker of social status and economic security. Then you have the other Korea, the one of stagnant wages, disappearing jobs, and a younger generation feeling the doors to the middle-class dream slowly closing. While home values in Seoul's toniest enclaves have skyrocketed over 20% in just the last year, household incomes nationally grew a meager 3.4% from a year earlier, far below the inflation rate of around 5%. Many young adults have effectively been priced out of the housing market entirely, leaving them stuck in cramped hovels or basement dwellings, staring bitterly at the city's luxury condo towers. There are those who were lucky enough to buy property early, riding the wave of rising values to dizzying new heights of wealth, said Lee Jae-min, a cafe owner in the upscale Gangnam district whose parents were able to purchase multiple investment properties decades ago. But for my generation, home ownership feels like an impossible dream unless you come from money. The playing field is horribly tilted. This divide between South Korea's haves and have-nots was on stark display at the latest meeting of the Bank of Korea's Monetary Policy Board. As its members debated whether to cut interest rates to spur economic growth, a critical factor was the potential impact on housing prices, which have become a barometer of the nation's soaring inequality. Lowering borrowing costs could unleash another speculative frenzy in the already overheated real estate market, worsening the crisis of affordable housing while doing little to boost incomes or consumption for ordinary Korean families. For the Bank of Korea, the real estate market has become both a symptom and a driver of the economic problems it is tasked with solving, said Park Sang-hyun, an economist at the Korea Development Institute. Trying to engineer a Goldilocks outcome by cooling the property bubble while stimulating growth is like trying to tame a wild animal. Ultimately, at its July meeting, the bank's board decided to hold its key interest rate steady at 3.5%, extending its longest period of policy inaction since adopting an American-style federal funds rate system in 2008. While overall inflation has started to moderate, the bank cited stubbornly high housing prices as a key reason for standing pat, reflecting how the real estate mania has tied its hands. Home prices should now be considered as the most important factor, commented Lee Sung-hyun, a former senior deputy governor at the Bank of Korea. A rate cut would spur speculation that more cuts would follow, and that would worsen the danger of distorting the property market further. Lee acknowledged the economic headwinds that have many analysts clamoring for monetary easing, including lackluster consumer spending, declining investment, and worries that U.S. slowdowns could derail South Korea's export engine. But he insisted that allowing the housing frenzy to gather new momentum by cutting rates would be a reckless move that trades short-term pain for long-term instability. The financial stability mandate has become more important for the upcoming meetings. Bum Ki-sun, an economist at Barclays Bank, wrote in a recent research note, "Focus on financial stability makes an October rate cut a close call, with increased risks of the BOK becoming more reactive than proactive. To see how high housing prices have warped the Korean economy, look no further than the nation's mind-boggling levels of household debt, some of the highest in the developed world relative to GDP. Armed with some of the highest privatized healthcare and education costs in the world, Korean families have taken on massive mortgage burdens to buy property seen as lasting wealth to pass on to their children. Much of this is locked up in Seoul's relentless property boom, deepening the divide between those with house-fueled nest eggs and those shut out. South Korea's property obsession is rooted in the traditional belief that owning tangible assets like land and homes is the true path to financial security and status. It's an ethos formed by centuries of turmoil where these solid investments were all a person could depend on to secure their family's well-being. Major real estate shifts in South Korea, like deregulation in the 2000s, unleash this pent-up asset hunger, transforming cities like Seoul into dizzying agglomerations of ultra-dense apartment towers. But as coveted as home ownership is, it has also exacerbated inequality by concentrating wealth among the haves while locking out strivers without family money or connections. It's a dynamic that has created a clan capitalism divide between Samsung princeling heirs residing in their $60 million Seoul penthouses and the growing population stuck in semi-basement dwellings who mock their oligarchy of chaebol bosses and property moguls as the men of no talent. President Yoon Suk Yeol won election last year on promises to fix this dysfunctional saga, proposing sweeping real estate and economic reforms. But so far his plans have been underwhelming, with incremental steps like marginal housing deregulation and modest tax tweaks to encourage corporate investment. He has stopped short of the systemic overhaul many hoped he would tackle, cowed perhaps by the enormity of the challenge and the enormous power of the nation's real estate oligarchy. The relentless property boom is also scrambling traditional assumptions about investing in Korea. Ordinary citizens have started plowing money into real estate rather than stocks and bonds amid distrust of the public markets and frustration with low returns. Speculative home flipping in hot areas like the trendy Gangnam district has created an entire cottage industry of property YouTubers offering get-rich advice. Korean millennials joke about the Bangjia-rain philosophy of getting ahead by marrying into families with houses rather than focusing on careers. I've had multiple friends quit stable office jobs to become real estate speculators, said Kim Min-ju, a 32-year-old advertising creative. For our generation, building a career or saving diligently seem like dead ends compared to trying to strike it rich in the housing casino by flipping places in neighborhoods seeing bubbles. All this points to an economy distorted by property hoarding, fanned by cheap money policies that have turbocharged inequality. With the government still mulling overdue reforms, the Bank of Korea remains stuck in the difficult position of trying to manage this chaos with limited policy tools. For now, its leaders still seem wary of throwing more gasoline on the flames of housing mania with an ill-timed rate cut. The memories of previous property bubbles and the economic devastation that followed still loom large. But with each new high reached in the price of Seoul's most coveted properties, and each new reckoning for the young facing decades of inflated rents and mortgages, the pressures build for more radical action. Perhaps the property frenzy captures a deeper anxiety rippling through all levels of Korean society. As the nation's brief miracle on the Han River epic fades, will its economic dynamism revert to an oligarch-dominated heritage of insider privilege and crony capitalisms? Or will a new model emerge from the ferment, one that spreads property ownership more equitably while catalyzing sustainable growth? The insatiable housing hunger and the Bank of Korea's struggle to restrain it may reveal which path lies ahead.